Looks like we got people being let in, so we'll get started here probably within the next couple of minutes if that works for everybody. Alrighty, I'm going to get started with our introductions. I'm Darby Garcia, Southwest Parking Transportation Association webinar coordinator, manager, person, thing, I don't know. Welcoming y'all to our December webinar. We have got the Spokane, Washington Emergency Management crew, looks like, City of Spokane, presenting on parking in the time of COVID. Do a little bit of announcements before I introduce the speakers here coming up pretty soon. Later on this week, later on next week, we're having a super fun gingerbread contest as part of our socially together, physically distance webinar. There's Andy Cushman with LAZ Parking, Laz Parking, going to be doing a little bit more explaining on this. If you haven't got your swag box yet, I haven't got mine, or I'd give you a little bit more teasers on there. So there's something in there to decorate a gingerbread parking garage. It'll be fun. I did a gingerbread house with my grandson and it fell apart. So this parking garage might be interesting. So yeah. And then after the presentation, we got a couple of power pitches. So hang on and listen to our wonderful crew. So with our webinar, we got parking in the time of COVID. Obviously, parking is an afterthought for a lot of people. It's forethought for all of us, but afterthought for a lot of peeps. You know, you got a public health emergency, which kind of requires flexible management for framework creation. Communities can reduce vulnerability and cope with disasters. Approaching parking management, which can enable adaptive emergency response, maximize access to parking, real estate, and all those other fun things. Our speakers for this webinar are going to be Chris Becker. She's a senior engineer with City of Spokane. She's a licensed professional engineer. She has devoted 17 years of leadership to the City of Spokane. She's streamlined permitting process for building and land use applications. Her profound work has led her to her current position as Director of Development Services Center, which includes management, strategy, and oversight of the engineering, building, planning, and code enforcement teams. And she recently acquired the Parking Services Division. Lucky you. That's the best division to acquire. Then we've got Jackie West. She's the operation manager. She has worked in municipal government for the last 7 years, focused on providing continuous improvement, business analysis, and technology solutions and program management to the Development Services Center for the City of Spokane, Washington. Last year, she took responsibility for parking and code enforcement. She expanded her role to operations manager. Born and raised in Spokane, she returned to the city with her family after living throughout the United States. Also, Lucky Jackie looks to be two people, while older in their profession, new to parking. Once you get in, you never get out. Kirsten Davis, communications manager, also with the City of Spokane. She's communications manager for neighborhood and business services. Kirsten has been doing public and media relations for 28 years in her hometown of Spokane, from local government to small business, making marketing to the world's largest 3-on-3 street basketball tournament. She has a wide variety of experiences to share. Hopefully I said everybody's names right and got all of your stuff. And now I'm going to turn it over to our fabulous City of Spokane.
Thank you so much. My name is Chris Becker, and welcome to our presentation about parking in the time of COVID. I would like to add a subtitle to our title and call it a story of serendipity. So I'll do a quick introduction of myself and then ask Jackie and Kirsten to both introduce themselves. I've been with the city for 18 years now. I am a civil engineer by training. I started my career with the city in development services doing plan review. And I was promoted to director of that department in 2012. In 2018, we had a reorganization, and code enforcement and parking were aligned with the development services center, which is like our permitting, all of our permitting, our building department, under my leadership. And you might think that combining those three departments into one is a strange thing to do. And I also thought that, but it really works. It really works for us, and you'll see why. Our division director, who sits in the mayor's cabinet, left the city in 2018. And we had another reorganization, and I have been the acting division director for most of 2020. So in addition to development services, code enforcement, and parking, I also manage our planning department, historic preservation, and economic development. And like you mentioned, I am relatively new to parking. I only have about 2.5 years under my belt, but I am a self-proclaimed parking geek. I love it. You are right. It is the best division to get. I really had some concerns at the beginning, but it is one of the most exciting and challenging and rewarding parts of my career so far. My teammates and I were able to travel to Vegas to SWAPTA in 2019. And so we were able to meet some of you, and we want to thank Julie Dixon for the introduction to SWAPTA and for connecting us with this group and this opportunity today. And we're really excited to be here today. So I'll kick it over to Jackie.
Hi, my name is Jackie West. I'm the operations manager for the Development Services Center, Code Enforcement and Parking. I started my career with the city working more on the technology side. So I worked as a business analyst, kind of interpreting the business needs to the technology needs, working closely with IT. And that's proven to be very valuable coming into parking because parking is nothing but technology. And it is so quickly evolving. It's been very exciting to be a part of it. I'll echo what Chris said. I've drank the parking Kool-Aid and I'm all in. I absolutely love it. It is very exciting. I really enjoy the community around parking as well. When we visited Las Vegas for SWAPTA, was it only last year? The community and the sharing of information is unlike any other community I've been in. So happy to be here today.
Kirsten, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning. I am Kirsten Davis, and unlike Chris, who's been here for 18 years, I've been at the city and involved in parking for 18 months. And so I am new to the industry, and I would echo what Chris and Jackie said as well, is that honestly, my favorite meetings are my parking meetings. So I think it's a testimony to the work that has to get done, and it's very problem solving and community based, which I love. And then I just think we have a great team. So I look forward to sharing some of this information with you today, and hopefully some of our ideas and experiences will be beneficial, and you can have some fun things to work on or to do when you return to your normal Twilight Zone life.
Thank you. So a little bit about Spokane, if you aren't familiar with us, we are located in eastern Washington, just a hop, skip and jump away from the Idaho Panhandle. We have a population of about 222,000 in the city limits, and our Spokane County, the population is about double that. I was not born in Spokane like Jackie, but I fell in love with Spokane as soon as I moved here in 2002. It is the perfect little big city. I moved from Seattle. Spokane is near nature and near perfect, and we have numerous opportunities for outdoor recreation literally outside of our doorstep. The Spokane River runs through the middle of our downtown. We are home to the #1 ranked Gonzaga Bulldogs. Every May, we have over 50,000 runners hit our streets for our Balloons Day race. It's a 12K that is consistently in the top 5 of the largest road running races in the US. In June, we have the world's largest 3-on-3 basketball tournament. It takes over our entire downtown, and Kirsten worked for them for many years. It has 6,000 teams, 3,000 volunteers, 225,000 fans, and 450 courts spanning 42 city blocks. We're a really unique city and a fantastic city. I encourage you all to come visit us. We have 4 full seasons. And in fact, we are expecting snow later today, and snow does play a big factor in our parking environment, or not today, sorry, this week. And we average 260 sunny days a year. Not quite Vegas, but we do enjoy a nice warm summer up here. Our city is almost 70 square miles, and our downtown is 6 square miles. A little bit about our parking infrastructure. We have over 37,000 parking spaces in our downtown. Only 15% of those are on-street spaces. The other 85% is located in private off-street facilities. We have over 3,300 metered parking spaces and 10 pay stations. 800 of our meters are smart meters, and the rest are coin operated only. When we took over parking 2.5 years ago, our paid parking hardware was beyond its service life at that point, and it desperately needs to be upgraded. When we came on, they say, a system is held together with duct tape and baling wire. Our parking team was using handhelds that were literally held together with duct tape and baling wire. So we knew we had some work to do coming on. Mobile payments are accepted at all of our spaces. We have a 30% mobile payment adoption rate, and we have 8 times the amount of mobile transactions compared to other cities of our same size. Our parking team consists of 13 parking enforcement specialists who do the enforcement and meter collections. We also operate a complaint-based neighborhood enforcement, and we average 25 to 30 neighborhood complaints per day. We issue approximately 10,000 daily, monthly, and annual parking permits. Residential permits are allowed in the downtown at all-day parking meters. We issue permits for commercial loading zones and also special loading zones, and that's our meter bag program. In 2019, we had $4.4 million in paid parking revenue. We issued 45,000 citations for an additional $1 million in revenue. And our municipal court system manages the payment and adjudication of all of our parking citations. So in 2019, we completed a downtown parking study, which was a 2-year process and involved numerous stakeholders. I could literally talk for an hour and a half about that study alone, but I won't. I'll just tell you that it was very comprehensive and it included an implementation plan. In August of 2019, we brought Julie Dixon and her team on board to help us with that implementation plan. And thank goodness we did, because we have been incredibly busy for the last 18 months. We have completely reorganized and rewritten our municipal codes related to parking. We have laid the foundation to support a performance-based management system, parking management system. We have engaged in a comprehensive RFP process for paid parking equipment. We've developed the RFP for parking management systems and LPR technology. We completed a parking asset inventory and developed a GIS map. And we've developed a robust marketing and communications plan. We have ongoing internal and external stakeholder outreach. We updated our parking webpage and social media presence. We developed an external facing GIS map with zone and space specific information. And our communications team has generated an enormous amount of momentum that we were able to capitalize on during 2020. In late February and March, we had really hit our stride and we were really deep into the implementation of our parking study. We were completing the final stages of the paid parking equipment RFP evaluations, and we hosted the world's first parking petting zoo. And I know it's hard to see in this picture, but that blue shirt on the left says parking zookeeper. Spokane City, we invited our citizens to come down and touch, feel, and feed the equipment from the companies that had been shortlisted in our procurement process. We were also completing a spring cleaning event. Towing was new to our parking department in 2019. Prior to that, it had been managed by our police department. We did manage the neighborhood parking complaints, and if we reached a point where a vehicle needed to be towed, we escalated that case to the police department. And those cases were managed by officers as they had time. And as you can imagine, police has a different set of priorities than parking enforcement, and oftentimes those things fell through the cracks. Also during this time frame, we changed the way our city takes parking complaints. They are all now managed through our 311 system. They can be anonymous now, and we don't require citizens to fill out a paper form as we have in the past. We launched our 311 mobile app in 2019. And all of those factors has led to an increase in the number of neighborhood parking complaints we are managing now. Those vehicles were always there. It's just that nobody was necessarily doing anything about them. We just made it a lot easier for our citizens and our customers to tell us about them. So by the beginning of 2020, our towing program was a year old. We had a backlog of over 1,500 neighborhood parking complaints that had built up. And there was a lot of frustration and screaming from our citizens, but also from our 311 staff who were taking repeat calls from angry citizens. So in the spring, we launched this all hands on deck spring cleaning event to clear the backlog. We developed a courtesy notice, and that's the hot pink piece of paper you see on the right there. And that was intentionally so it would not be missed. And this was a new effort for the city, and we wanted to have a visible presence in the neighborhood. We wanted the citizens to know that we were out there. They would see these hot pink pieces of paper. They knew we were there. And we wanted to encourage voluntary compliance from our citizens before we went out there with a heavy hand and started issuing tickets. So between February 26th and March 5th, we had over 1,500 interactions. We closed 410 complaints because they were no longer in violation. Either the vehicle had moved or there was no code violation. 405 of the corrections were, 405 of the violations were corrected before we had to issue a warning. We just, by giving them the courtesy notice that we got voluntary compliance. We issued 67 warnings. We tagged 177 vehicles as abandoned. We tagged 18 as junk vehicles, and by March 5th, we had towed 55 of those vehicles. And then COVID hit. So Washington State had the dubious honor of having the first diagnosed COVID case in our nation. In February, there were many restrictions and mitigation measures in place on the west side of the state, but the eastern Washington, where Spokane is, hadn't really been impacted yet. But in early March, things were starting to spill over. On March 13th, our governor closed all of our schools in the state and banned large gatherings. On March 15th, there was a statewide shutdown of all bars and restaurants. And by mid-March, we were starting to see our first cases of COVID. Our mayor and county commissioners issued emergency declarations. That's the same week of March 13th and 15th. And our regional emergency operations center was activated. The EOC was staffed primarily by our county emergency management department, but that was only 6 people. And so it was supplemented by staff from many, many of the jurisdictions and organizations in our county. Because of my experience with the city and the relationships that I developed within our city and with some of our partner agencies, I was asked to serve in the operations section at the EOC. I was the branch director for vulnerable populations. And that meant I spent a lot of time setting up isolation facilities and temporary homeless shelters. We did 9 in 9 months. It has been a roller coaster of a year. And also working on food security. But I also supported the economic recovery branch at the EOC. At the same time, the city had its own COVID response team. And because I was an acting division head and part of the mayor's cabinet, I was asked to sit on that team as well. And it's those 3 things, that is a little bit of the serendipity here, that my serving at the EOC, being a part of the city's COVID response team and being on the mayor's cabinet, that really allowed me to be in the right place at the right time and introduce parking into the conversation of the COVID response. Spokane has a strong mayor form of government. Our mayor was new. She was just elected last November. Our city administrator was new. His first week on the job was the first week of February. And much of our cabinet had actually left with the last mayor, and we had 26 director and senior leadership positions vacant at the beginning of 2020. There was a lot of new faces at the table, and I was fortunate to be one of those. And having been with the city for 18 years, I brought a lot of institutional knowledge and was relied on for a lot of the conversations that we were having. So one of the first things that happened, like I said, was the governor closed all the restaurants and bars on March 15th. That meant that in-person dining was closed, but restaurants could still offer to-go service. The city quickly launched the Order at Spokane campaign to support local businesses and encourage people to take out from their favorite restaurants. March 15th was a Sunday. On my drive into work on Monday morning, I got a call from the city administrator who had a great idea of how to support our businesses who would struggle with these new restrictions. We could make all of the metered parking downtown free. And I know that you've all probably heard that same idea. Luckily, I'd been anticipating this call all weekend and had been thinking of alternatives, and I had an alternate solution to offer. So I recommended that we create temporary 10-minute parking zones near restaurants in the city core to allow the citizens and delivery drivers to efficiently pick up to-go orders. He loved it and he gave us the green light. In the next 6 hours, the parking team was able to design these yellow signs that you see. We had them printed in-house, and deployed the signs on over 120 parking meters downtown. In this initial deployment on that Monday, we did not wait for a business to request them. We just plastered the city. And we tried to distribute them throughout the downtown to provide coverage for all of our restaurants. These are shared spaces. They're not specific to a particular business. Our communications team leapt into action and created a social media presence, a blog post, and media coverage. In that communications push, we asked restaurants to email us if they too wanted one of these 10-minute zones. And we throughout the year, we've been able to usually respond on the same day and get that zone established for them. This is also the case if some of the signs go missing. They're printed on like a waterproof paper, and they're zip tied to the meter pole. So sometimes they go missing, and we're able to get right back out there and reestablish those zones. We didn't have any restrictions initially with a lot of the businesses being closed down. There wasn't a huge demand for parking downtown. So if anybody called us and asked for one, we would get out there and put one out there. And we anticipated that because of the low parking demand that we could support as many as the businesses thought that they needed. And as we move through the phases of reopening our economy, we anticipated that we would gradually reduce these numbers on the streets. So we created the courtesy notice you see on the left and gave those to not only our parking team, but we provided those to the security team at our local mall and our downtown Spokane partnership who manages our business district in the downtown. So that they could place those on vehicles if they saw vehicles who were abusing them. And we originally intended that this program would be implemented in the downtown, but we've also had requests outside of our metered boundary to create these zones. And as long as there is a signpost or something for us to attach a 10-minute zone parking sign to, we will do that. One of our business districts outside the metered area created a zone of about 10 on-street stalls that's next to a cluster of 7 restaurants. And that district has their own concierge service, they call them car hops, that will deliver food orders from all of those restaurants to the vehicles. And so Kirsten wants to share a story, a success story from one of our local businesses.
Yeah, so right outside of our downtown core, we have a neighborhood area that's really developed, increased a lot of development in the last several years. So they have a spot where it's not metered, but they have a lot of daytime parkers there, that sort of thing. So they actually pushed out onto their Twitter feed that they would like some 10-minute parking signs. And so our social media manager was able to flag that and got a hold of me. I got a hold of parking, and literally within, I think it was an hour or two, we had signs up there and a way to, because since they didn't have meters, we just kind of figured out ways to, or I say we, the parking team, figured out ways to put those signs up. And then later, right after that happened, that it was actually a coffee shop that sells food as well, tweeted out, him standing next to the signs, thanking the city for responding so quickly and very appreciative. I drove by there the other day, and those signs they're still utilizing that opportunity. So it was just a really great opportunity for the public and especially the business community, see how quickly the city responded to their needs. I think that a lot of times parking, is seen as a money grab or that sort of thing. And this is really an opportunity to portray the work that Parking Services does in a team effort to help businesses in a difficult time.
This program has been very successful and well received. Our businesses are so appreciative of the effort that we have taken to support them. After the initial launch and the success that we saw, we've really been trying to figure out how to incorporate these pickup zones into our parking system permanently. We knew that this was a feature that was never going to go away completely. And as a complete convert of curbside pickup at retail and restaurants now, I hope it never goes away. So back in the spring, like everybody, we thought we would have this initial shutdown and then we would roll through each of the phases. Our governor had a 4-stage reopening plan, and we all thought we would roll through that much faster than we actually had. We really anticipated that initial push was a temporary solution, maybe a couple of months at most, and then we would start rolling back how many we had out there. And like I said, we'd printed them on waterproof paper and attached them with zip ties, which is not the most permanent installation. Over the summer and fall, we have evaluated the locations of the zone, and we've only reduced them where the businesses didn't want them anymore. And we have continued to add them wherever they're requested. Again, we have not really established limits on how many there can be. And we've also expanded it as we did roll into the next phase and our retail was able to reopen. We did include retail pickup zones for retail as well. And we always knew there was a possibility of abuse from these zones, both from business owners just trying to create a zone for themselves, and from citizens. And we have seen some, but I don't think we have seen nearly as much as you might have anticipated. In the early days, people were generally respectful and very appreciative of the zones. As the pandemic wore on and people were getting that COVID fatigue, and things were starting to reopen and downtown parking demand grew, we've seen more abuse. They're flimsy and temporary, and we have experienced a citizen parking their vehicle, getting out of their vehicle, ripping the sign off, and then parking there for the 2 or more hours as allowed by that existing meter. If we don't actually see that happen, there's really not not a lot that we can do. So we are brainstorming what we can do going in the future. And one of the challenges that we have found is, again, if a business called and they said, I want one of these in front of my business, we would go out and we would put one in front of their business. What this has resulted in is these are sprinkled kind of randomly throughout the city, and enforcing those is a little bit more challenging than your standard enforcement. We've had a few complaints from citizens because you can't make all the people happy all the time. The location of the 10-minute zones is inconsistent from block to block. The signage is below the meter. It's difficult to see as you're driving down a street, and you can't anticipate where you will find one. They're not necessarily on every block. And I can attest firsthand that that's a frustrating experience if you're driving around downtown looking for a spot, you see one and then realize, oh, that's a mid-block 10-minute zone. So just before Thanksgiving, our governor enacted new restrictions. So we had reopened some of our businesses and we're starting to lock back down again. So we have new restrictions on restaurants, bars, and retail with significant capacity limitations and all. And these restrictions coming just before the holidays make these 10-minute zones more critical than ever. We again heard the cries of make all the parking free, but we've been able to point to the success of this program and the support we've received from our business community to kind of shut down that conversation. We are gearing up, like I mentioned, as this has gone on, we've identified some things that we can improve. And so we're gearing up to launch our new 10-minute zone 2.0 program, which I call our semi-permanent phase, where we will standardize the location of these zones on the block. So we'd like it to be the first stall in the direction of travel so that people they're consistently located from block to block. We're going to get some sturdier signage, and we are going to paint the domes of the meters so that those stalls stand out and they're easier to see as you're driving through the downtown. And so we anticipate that work will be done in the next couple of weeks. So that was what happened after March 15th. On March 23rd, our governor issued a statewide stay home, stay healthy order, and that banned all social, spiritual, and recreational gatherings, and it closed all non-essential businesses. And that was 8 days after he ordered the closure of all the restaurants and bars. And that was the point. This was the point where we decided we would suspend our paid parking. If you all remember back to those days in March, things were moving very quickly, and there was a lot of information out there, and sometimes that information was conflicting. We were instructed by our HR department to send all of our non-essential workers home, and any employee that could telecommute, we needed to exercise that option. So most of our staff in our division in development services and planning and historic preservation could work from home. Our code enforcement teams could work remotely from home or from their vehicles, but we really struggled what to do with our parking team. We were fielding a lot of questions and concerns about from our parking team about the sanitization of the paid parking equipment and about managing the large amounts of coin that we do. So in order to reduce the possible COVID touch points on the meters and pay stations, we programmed them not to take payment. And total payment was suspended for 2 months between March 25th and May 25th. And our paid parking revenues, as you can imagine, took a hit and were down 60% between March and August. In order to support our residents who were complying with the governor's orders and staying home and not moving their vehicles, we allowed the residential parking passes, which are used in the downtown, to be used at any paid parking device, not just the all-day meters like they normally are. And in our outlying neighborhoods, we suspended enforcement of our 72-hour time stay on residential streets. As the unemployment numbers were increasing, we also made the decision to temporarily suspend enforcement of our scofflaw list, our boot and tow program. This decision was in line with our Public Works Department, who discontinued utility shutoffs and for delinquent utility bills, and with the statewide moratorium on evictions. One silver lining of shutting down some of our parking operations was that we were able to redeploy our staff to assist other departments. And some of those temporary assignments included sending staff over to our Parks Department. And Parks Department has really proven to be an essential city operation for us as outdoor activities are one of the few things that our citizens can still do safely. And they have really stepped up and supported our community by creating all kinds of safe options to recreate. And I would encourage all of you to visit our website and see some of the creative things they've done. They really dug deep and came up with some cool ideas. Just this month, we launched a winter market in our iconic pavilion in Riverfront Park. We have a drive-through light show in one of our other featured parks. And they were able to work with our health district and open our outdoor skating ribbon, which is kind of an iconic thing here in the city and is new. We redeveloped our downtown park over the last several years. And so that has kind of become a Christmas tradition for us. And they've gotten real creative on how they were able to do that. So we sent a couple staff over to support our park operations and keep our parks. They also took a hit to all of their revenue. All of their paid recreation programs were canceled. And so they were not able to hire the same number of temporary staff or seasonal staff that they normally do. And they were really struggling to get some of their park maintenance done. So our team went over and assisted with that. We sent one of our Spec 2s over to assist full-time at the EOC, where he supported the planning section and developing the daily incident action plan. So he was there for 2 months. And we were also able to leverage the team with other EOC work that we were doing, that I was in charge of, those 9 isolation facilities and shelters. They were able to help us with set up and support moving equipment, setting up beds. Also, in the early days, as we were starting to see the COVID cases in Spokane, our emergency rooms were seeing an increasing number of symptomatic people who needed to be tested. This is before we had a regional testing facility set up. Our mayor's office received an email one day from a hospital director requesting assistance. This hospital is located downtown, and while it does have a parking garage, the hospital wanted to contain the people with COVID-like symptoms and limit the exposure to hospital staff and other patients. So they had an idea. They wanted to reserve several of the metered stalls located outside the ER where patients could pull up and remain in their vehicle. Within hours of this request, the meters were bagged and the first drive-up COVID testing site was implemented. A hospital staff member met each of those patients at their vehicle. They triaged them, and if a COVID test was needed, it was performed car side. And then that person went home to quarantine or await their test results. And so we were really able to limit exposure in that way. Later in the spring, our health district did implement a drive-through testing facility at our fairgrounds. It was a much larger scale. And then this site was decommissioned and the metered parking was reestablished. So like I had mentioned, we had suspended our paid parking and our revenues really took a hit, and downtown parking had kind of become a free-for-all. People heard no payment is required, and they took that to mean that there's no rules. So we needed, by May, when businesses were starting to reopen, we knew we needed to reinstate payments and create order, and we had a plan for that. And Jackie's going to tell us about that.
Great. And Chris, we do have a couple questions that came in. I'll address the first one as it pertains to 10-minute curbside pickup. So I'll say that enforcement of the 10-minute curbside pickup is a lot easier when we're in lockdown, because generally people are coming down for a very particular purpose. But when we started to reopen and we started to see more traffic into the downtown, it has been a challenge. Our group is not fully staffed right now. And that's where we've really utilized our downtown parking ambassadors and our mall security to utilize the courtesy notices. And I think in general, we're actually seeing good turnover of those spots. A lot of it does come down to employee parking. We have recognized that employees really can suss out the free parking pretty quickly and take up those spots. And so having those people on the street walking around and seeing the same cars every day, we're starting with education and a conversation. And if that isn't working, then we're bringing enforcement over to site if necessary. So as we started to reopen, we are big fans of courtesy notices. We like to employ all the colors of the rainbow in our courtesy notices. We find that it helps not only for the customer receiving the notice, but for the customer seeing the notices on vehicles. And so as you can see displayed here, we have 3 different notices, and we affect more of a neighborly approach and a conversational approach. And we knew that as we came back into Safe Start, we had learned, a lot of our citizens had learned some behaviors that we needed to go back and reinforce for paid parking. And so we did that slowly. We did a phased approach. And so in the first week, which was May 25th, we knew that paid parking would resume. And so we had our parking enforcement officers provide courtesy notices rather than citations. We were actively enforcing and citing against the no parking zones, commercial loading zones, taxi zones, special loading zones, and of course, any safety issues. But for time limit overstays and for the 10-minute, we were really utilizing those courtesy notices. In week 2, which was June 1st, we started using warnings through our citation system. And so, courtesy notices for a week, then we're with warnings. And again, it's just really about notification and informing people of a return to standard behavior after no payment for so long. We stayed strong with enforcement of the no parking zones, commercial loading zones, taxi zones, and safety issues. We did, one of the things that we did do with our stay home, stay healthy order was not only did we allow citizens to exceed the time limits, we have a 72-hour turnover in our neighborhood. We also have quite a few residential parking pass holders in our downtown. And we recognize that those pass holders would, in normal times, be required to move quite frequently. And so that was something that we actually relaxed. We allowed our residential parking pass holders to continue to utilize all paid parking meters. Normally, they're only allowed to use all-day meters, which are located on the fringes of the downtown, but we allowed them to utilize all paid parking devices until June 8th. On June 8th, that 3rd week, we did full paid parking device time stay enforcement resumes. We started doing tickets. We still continue to utilize the 10-minute curbside pickups. And then we started asking our residential parking pass holders to start migrating back to those all-day meters. But again, it was a lot of courtesy notices and communications, a lot of conversations. And as we're doing this, we're not only communicating with these notices, we're also doing press releases. We have it on Facebook. We have a pretty strong parking website that we're pushing information through. And we were actually updating. So, phase 1, week 1, week 2, week 3, we're putting information out so people knew where we were and what to expect if they did come downtown. We also talked quite a bit about how do you protect yourself from the spread of COVID when you are downtown. We're sanitizing the hardware daily with a bleach solution. Our staff is wearing protective equipment. They're wearing nitrile gloves. They're wearing masks. We're following all the governor's workplace safety rules and regulations. We're staying home if we're sick, but also to continue to push our customers. We really reinforced our mobile payment app. And so, don't use your card, don't use coin, use the app. You can remain in your vehicle. You don't have to touch the paid parking equipment if you're uncomfortable with that. So the one thing that we have not brought back completely is our scofflaw. We have an active scofflaw list. Ours is comprised of those that have 4 tickets or more. And when we went down into stay home, stay healthy, we discontinued any enforcement on our scofflaw list. And that continues. We have not opened that back up yet. Chris, back to you.
Right. Thank you, Jackie. So as I mentioned, we have 4 seasons here in Spokane, and some of those, especially winter, are longer than others. And it was, when COVID first hit, it was cold and still snowing here, when the restaurants were closed for in-person dining. When we moved into phase 2 in May, and they were allowed to open, it was at a reduced capacity. I believe it was 25% initially. And there was great interest in exploring options to expand the outdoor dining in support of these restaurants. And the timing was great in May. We were starting to see some nice weather. Our permitting process for sidewalk cafes and parklets and streeteries is not simple, and it involves a public hearing. Streetery applicants are also required to pay the city for the lost parking meter revenue. And that can be a barrier to some businesses on a good day. During COVID, it would have been a huge barrier. In mid-May, we met with City Council and some local restaurant owners to develop options for streamlining the process. In less than 2 weeks, one of our planners coordinated an amendment to our municipal code to streamline the permitting process and waive all fees this year. An executive order allowing staff flexibility in regulations governing sidewalk cafes, streeteries, and required parking for businesses. We were also allowing people to use their required parking in off-street parking to expand outdoor dining. She also put together a council resolution to support all of these efforts and produced a 14-page guidebook for business owners in 2 weeks. She coordinated all of this work with city departments, partner agencies, business and industry representatives. Our downtown businesses immediately submitted applications to take advantage of this flexibility. And anyone who's worked in a downtown knows that every one of those sites had its own site-specific challenges. It's really complicated in a downtown. Even our experienced staff with flexibility and the ability to find creative solutions really struggled to work through all of these issues in a timely manner. After a few weeks of this pilot program, the business owners came back screaming and said, you need to do something more, and it needs to be faster. So once again, our planner was able to pivot very quickly, and she arranged for a preliminary inspection with key city departments that would allow the city to issue a provisional permit and the business to open in the expanded space within 24 to 48 hours of their application. We were able to get our building and fire crews out there to really address the life safety issues and get them open. We've supported the creation of new outdoor dining spaces, not only in our downtown core, but also in other business districts throughout the city. As our restaurants, salons, and retail stores were reopening, we launched the Save One incentive through our Passport app to motivate people to come downtown, but also to utilize the app for mobile payment, reducing our coin handling, as Jackie mentioned. We've recently re-engaged some of our businesses, and one of the things that they've really expressed that they want from us, from the city, is reinforcement to the public that it is still safe to come downtown. It is still safe to utilize the curbside pickup zones. They don't necessarily want parking for their business. They want us to encourage the public to continue to have safe behaviors and engage in safe activities. So we anticipated that we would see expansive use of the streetery option since all of the fees had been waived. And on the parking side of the house, we prepared ourselves for the loss of that meter revenue. And Jackie's going to tell us about an experience with one of our restaurants.
Sure, thanks, Chris. So parklets and streeteries, I don't know if they exist in all jurisdictions. We've had quite a bit of interest in past years of utilization of an existing on-street parking space to either become a parklet, so a little green space, an activity space, or a streetery, so an extension of your sidewalk cafe into the street. And so luckily for us, parking has now become very involved with the Development Services Center side, and we had a seat at that table as well. We knew that curb space management was going to be an ongoing discussion when it came to restaurants, hoping to meet their capacity needs to stay operating while not being able to use inside space. So at this time, I believe we were at 50% capacity inside restaurants, and that was very difficult for some of our downtown businesses to meet since they were in smaller spaces, tables pushed together. We had to maintain 6 feet between chair backs. It was really difficult to do in some of those locations. And so we knew that our businesses would start looking at available space. In some parts of our downtown, we only have 5-foot sidewalks. Is there going to be enough space for a sidewalk cafe and for safe travel of pedestrians? And so we came to the table and said, hey, we're offering up parklet and streetery space for you. Take your on-street parking and convert it. And as you can see, this is more of a standard. On our left is more of a standard restaurant configuration downtown. On our right is a very creative restaurant configuration. It's actually in an alleyway. So it maintains the necessary, I think it's 13 feet for the vehicle traffic. But they got some tables out there and actually had quite a few able to use that space. So what was interesting at one of these locations is it was a series of 4 restaurants. They wanted to increase their sidewalk cafe space, but when they came in, they had every conflict that could exist in that area. They had a fire escape that entered into the area. They had vaults in the sidewalk that they couldn't place tables on. They had uneven surfaces. They had street trees that reduced walking space between. It just wasn't working for them. And so we said, hey, you have all of this angled parking in front of your business. Go ahead and use that. Use a parklet, you do a streetery there, expand your space there. And they said, no, we don't want to. We need that parking for our customers. And it was a huge aha moment of, free parking doesn't work for people because they know that they need that space, that their customers want to park as close as possible to the business. And we've heard that refrain over and over again. It's like we're kind of seeing the tide turn when it comes to free parking and really understanding parking as a resource and something that is essential to these businesses, and really understanding too how enforcement and our parking officers assist in that effort.
All right, thanks, Jackie. So as I mentioned, we suspended the 72-hour time limit enforcement in neighborhoods because many people had been working and learning from home and limiting their travel and activities since March in compliance with our governor's orders. When we made that decision, we certainly did not anticipate that stay-home order would still be in effect in December. Our major public school district started this year with all students on a virtual learning program and have only just recently started bringing those younger students back in person. Again, as I mentioned, our progress through our Safe Start reopening plan has been very slow. And there was no point in that process where we were like, now's the point where we're going to start enforcing that 72-hour time stay again. There's no trigger or no nexus. However, winter was coming, and our street department has a leaf pickup program in the fall, and we knew snow season was starting on November 15th, and that vehicles that had been parked on the street for a long time would need to move. 2020, the joke was on us. We had a record-breaking snow on October 23rd when we had over 6 inches of snow. So it wasn't even going to wait for November 15th. We initiated, at the beginning of November, we initiated a fall cleanup event similar to our spring cleanup so that we could prepare for our public works departments to have a successful winter. And that cleanup was meant to get ready for plowing and address that backlog of on-street parking complaints that had built up over the summer. Even though we were not enforcing the 72-hour time stay, we continued to take neighborhood parking complaints since March. We would, as Jackie mentioned, we would go out and address the things that were not, parking in the wrong direction or abandoned vehicles or, clearly junk vehicles. But if it was just a time stay issue, we did not enforce on that. There was a coordinated social media and media campaign building on the work that we had done in the spring. That hot pink courtesy notice that we did in the spring was the first courtesy notice we developed, and you've seen that's a theme we've used throughout our program. We developed a parking etiquette notice in the city's signature shade of lilac to remind citizens of the rules that exist in our regulations. Parking and code enforcement staff went out prior to our cleanup event and proactively placed these on vehicles, on RVs, on boats, on trailers, in an attempt to get the voluntary compliance before we send people out to ticket them. We also printed our hot pink notices on the fall shade of pumpkin spice latte as our first step in the enforcement process for our fall event. Our goal is always to educate the public and give them the opportunity to fix the violation before we issue them a warning or a citation. We started with almost 1,000 complaints in November, and we continue to receive about 25 a day. Since fall cleanup started, we've closed over 1,100 complaints, including 80% of our backlog, which we consider to be greater than 30 days. So throughout all of COVID, we still did our regular job, and we have been hard at work at implementing our downtown parking study. We are in the final stages of adopting our code changes. We are preparing to roll out. We made our selection on our new paid parking equipment, and we are preparing to roll that out in the spring. We have put out the citation management, permit management, and mobile LPR RFP, and that procurement is in the final stages now. We are modifying our permit programs. We issue paper permits right now. We really, really want to get to a place where those are digital. We are evaluating our commercial loading zones and our short-term parking in our downtown. We've started working with our team this fall on our business rules, our policies, and our procedures, just generally our business operations. We're working on parking branding and wayfinding. And those are just a few of the things that we're continuing to work on. As we're in the process of locking back down, there is a reinvigorated support of our downtown businesses. Like I mentioned, we have our 10-minute zone 2.0 coming. Our mayor has proclaimed instead of one small business Saturday, we have 4, and we have utilized our Passport app to provide a parking incentive for that, our Park Your Sleigh for Less program. And like I said, our fall cleanup continues. So I know all of you know that parking is powerful and touches every aspect of a city. A lot of our success stems from the unique circumstances that we found ourselves in. Not every jurisdiction has the same organization chart of having your development services staff paired with your code enforcement and your parking team. But that has been a real benefit to us in being able to leverage parking to help out with problems that wouldn't necessarily ever be assigned to parking to solve. I was the third director for, or I am the third director for parking in 5 years when I took over this department, and I inherited a pretty broken system that did not have a replacement plan. And when we first started meeting with Julie Dixon, she kindly put it that there was not much that we were going to keep about our system, except for our staff. Our staff are amazing, and they are creative, and they work very, very hard. But this has been a real opportunity for us. We can do a complete reboot of our parking system. And in doing that, we've been really diligent in our stakeholder engagement. And we were so fortunate that that started before COVID, because we were able to use that momentum and the tools that our communications team had developed in solving some of these problems for our community. And our communications team is amazing, and they have showcased parking and celebrated our wins for our community, so that parking isn't a negative story always. We're really developing a reputation within our community of being solution oriented. And I put in my notes here that Kristen is a parking nerd too, so I'm glad she proclaimed that as well. So I think, and another thing is being new, relatively new, is I can still use the excuse of I don't know any better, and I can try some crazy ideas that might not seem like a good idea to maybe a seasoned parking professional. But we've had some real opportunities to try some new things, and I think they've worked out pretty well for us. So with that, I will open it up to questions. Jackie, I don't know if you want to.
Yes, Chris, we did have a question. If we were an enterprise fund, and we did answer that, was council approval required for fee waivers?
So no. Under normal conditions, yes, they would have. We have utilized the mayor's emergency declaration to be able to move very quickly and provide flexibility from our regulations. However, as I mentioned, with the streeteries and the sidewalk cafes, we prepared a municipal code amendment, which did require council approval, but also a resolution for the council to adopt, showing their support of those changes. So we were able to move very quickly with just the mayor's approval, but we did follow up and get the council support as well.
Great. Any other questions?
Well, thank you all for your time.
I gotta remember to unmute. Thank you all for your presentation. It was fantastic information. I would imagine that you're open to outreach if anybody needs some extra chats or some questions you didn't get answered. So what we're going to do at this point is we've got 4 power pitches. If you want to stay on, we've got some great ones. The first one's going to be Mr. Darrow with Passport.
Greetings, everyone. I'm so glad to be a part of this SWAPTA webinar. I know a lot of you are already familiar with Passport, and I'm a new face. So a little about myself. My name is Darrell Davis. I've been with Passport for just over 2 years. While not new to the company, I am new to this territory, the Southwest. I previously covered the Southeastern United States, but am now taking on a new challenge. I'm certainly looking forward to being able to meet industry friends face-to-face again, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I only have 5 minutes, so I'll get right into it with a high-level overview of what's new at Passport, the Passport operating system. At Passport, we recognize that the way cities have managed their resources in the past just doesn't work today. From our conversations in the marketplace, municipalities across the country recognize this as well. Single payment options are no longer the best way to run a parking operation. We at Passport have been prepping for this industry shift for the last 5 years as we readied our platform. We've been providing multi-app functionality for quite some time in cities where we create a city-branded application to run alongside the Passport application, and there is a difference. Giving people choices is the way of the future, and that optionality does not come without its hiccups, of course, because managing multiple payment options has to be an arduous task, right? That's actually wrong. The ways in which we get around have changed. The way that the way that we expect for goods and services to be delivered to us has changed, and the way that we pay for services has changed. In today's model, we need to give people what they want: easy, safe, frictionless, and reliable experiences, regardless of their choice of transportation and services and their available methods of payment. Many cities are looking to offer more choices within their communities. For example, more ways to pay for parking. But piecing together a patchwork of parking solutions is not a scalable and efficient way to offer people the best options. In fact, it can create confusion and frustration. With that said, let me walk you through the Passport operating system. At its foundation, we've built a strategic decision-making platform that provides you with a single source of truth. You get the data, analytics, and insights that city leaders need to develop and implement effective policy management. You can also take advantage of Passport's best practices based on our deep experience in the industry. In addition, we provide the tools so you can manage your own business rules and logic, determining eligibility, managing rates, and ensuring compliance and enforcement. And on top of all that, we've built an open ecosystem via API access, providing the opportunity for others to innovate and build additional apps. These additional apps can include delivery services, autonomous vehicles, micromobility, and more. It can meet the needs for new modes of transportation and interactions that will impact your communities now and in the future. Running through it all is our embedded payments application, ensuring accessibility, compliance, and security. It's a future-proof system delivering increased revenue, reduced costs, simplified processes, and user experience innovation. The Passport operating system, is available now. We deliver a platform that includes the ability for cities to configure and manage the supporting infrastructure. We provide embedded payment solutions, and this is the foundation of our operating system. We also have APIs that provide partners the ability to build additional apps that sit on the operating system, delivering even more capabilities. So while Passport offers solutions today for parking, permits, micromobility, and mapping integrations, we're also working with partners on additional features for connected vehicles, meters, and pay stations, and more. When Apple launched the iPhone, it offered 20 apps. Due to the ability for third parties to build on iOS, there are now 2 million apps available. By building an operating system for cities, we can offer similar innovation to ensure you can scale and address needs into the future. This changes everything. One operating system to manage all your vehicle interactions. It changes your costs, payments, compliance, permits, enforcement, access, process, convenience, revenue, and accountability. The future starts now, and we can help your city today and in the future. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.
And Daryl, did you want to say a few words?
No, I appreciate everybody giving me some time to talk a little bit about what Passport has to offer. This is my first activity participating with anything related to SWAPTA. Like I mentioned in the video, I'm new to the territory, so I'm looking forward to meeting everybody when I can. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions about what I spoke about today. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Next up, we have got Chris from Barnacle. Am I right? Nick with Barnacle. Okay. Good thing you changed your name on there. That was helpful.
Barnacle Parking, and I'm going to show you today in 5 minutes Barnacle Sonar. Many of you may have seen us. We've released this pretty widely over the last month or so as a new technology that will pretty much change everything LPR and probably change everything parking moving forward, in a sense, specifically for enforcement. Sonar is a technology that we have partnered with Motorola Solutions in building and creating over the last year and a half or so. And it was designed with the thought process of getting, the collection rates of municipalities across the country well up and beyond the average and or the bar set at about 70% currently. So the idea, of course, is to get something out there that can really truly get collection rates closer to that 90 percentile, if not even better. And with that being said, Barnacle Sonar is a technology that utilizes a crowdsourced fleet. What I mean by that is you have vehicles already driving throughout multiple, actually in this case, every single municipality in our country that have cameras on them. And these vehicles are, in many cases, just simply tow operators. They could be rideshare drivers and package delivery services that have signed up to be part of this fleet. Now, those vehicles that are driving around these cameras are doing so with no knowledge and or no routing really when it comes down to where they're supposed to go. Obviously, some of the tow trucks have the pre-designated routes, but everything else pretty much just driving around doing what they do, point A to point B. And while they're doing that, they're collecting a huge amount of data. And that is what Sonar is utilizing to become Sonar. So without being too redundant on that, what you're looking at on the screen is the Barnacle dashboard. This is the generic dashboard. It's a screenshot from back in April of 2020. And what you're seeing is a couple barnacles on the screen here that are live and just pretty much our back end that shows you how the barnacles are operating in real time. Sonar, which will be, it's a button actually, you would click on it, would open up the ability to visualize every single scofflaw within your city limits, in this case in orange, and also outside of your city limits. And what I mean by that, these are scofflaws in blue here that actually are scofflaws of the city within these ordinances, just how the vehicles were not seen in this specific run within those ordinances. They were seen outside of those ordinances. And that really opens up a kind of a new platform potentially for data sharing, which is for another 5-minute presentation. However, you could take any of these vehicles, and just so everyone understands it, this is a historical mapping that I'm showing you here, 30-day run. You will also have access to get real-time alerts as they happen. So as a fleet driver is, driving down one of these main streets or any of these residential streets or commercial districts, and a vehicle is spotted that is a scofflaw, it will populate on this map in real time as well. Anyway, so diving in, you can dive into any vehicle, whether it's historical or real time, and see some basic information about it. You can dive in a little farther and see some of the basic mapping and see kind of where that vehicle is. And you can even go even farther and see that that vehicle has been at this location every single day, Sunday through Saturday, pretty much every single day, 180 times, give or take, between Sunday and Saturday, usually between the hours of 5 p.m. and let's call it 7 a.m. And knowing this information, even though in this case, let's call it, it's not a live hit, it's a historical hit, you can sort your data and look for, let's say, your worst offenders, and then take this information and make a good, educated, and informed decision on enforcing on those particular violators. You could also take this information and untarget based on, let's say, a demographic area, political hotspot, maybe a large residential mall, whatever you want to call it. You can remove those using polygon tools in our back end. But the basis of this is the ability to really single down and find vehicles in areas that you otherwise would not be able to do so with traditional LPR. Traditional LPR, of course, has most vehicles driving in predictable routes, and those routes, of course, do not get into these further residential neighborhoods, commercial districts, maybe outside of that. That being said, Sonar has become and probably will be the ultimate supplemental tool for traditional LPR, and in some cases replace it. It really comes down to what the city needs are. It does not do digital tracking, so obviously if you're using that, that would be probably better for traditional LPR. But outside of that, for scofflaw and scofflaw find, there's nothing like this, right? And you're looking on the screen here, you see every vehicle that was found in the city limits, and every vehicle that was found, in this case, in the Cook County area, Chicago, that again are scofflaws that belong to this specific city, were found. So there's, again, the open opportunity for data sharing among cities. So in this case, within the orange there in city limits, we found 139 vehicles in the middle of COVID. This is April 2020. And then roughly about $35,000 in scofflaw. And then outside of those areas, again, in those county areas and city areas, we found 322 vehicles at about $81,000 in scofflaw value. With all this being said, Barnacle Sonar is the most powerful technology when it comes to finding scofflaws in your municipality, and will, again, change everything when it comes to enforcement. If you are interested in a demo, please feel free to reach out directly to myself, Nick Stanton at Barnacle, as well as any of our team members. We're all ready to get this technology out there, and we're excited to really change the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just one more thing to add. We just added a feature where you can actually select any of those vehicles on the map and auto calculate and auto create routes and then send them out to officers in the field. That's one of the latest things we've done. So other than that, no, thank you so much for allowing me to do this today.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. Our next power pitch up will be Nate and maybe Jonathan, just because you have a cool McCarthy logo, with McCarthy.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for having us. Like Don said, my name is Nate Jacobs. I represent McCarthy here in Las Vegas, and I'm pretty bummed that we don't get to do another site tour of Garage Mahal. This isn't how I was going to start that, but that was a lot of fun last year, and really hoping that I get to get everybody through that building next year, the SWAPTA conference. But that'll kick it over to Jonathan for a quick intro.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Kimball. I've been with McCarthy for about 4 years now, and my main role is managing a lot of our self-performed concrete crews, which are integral to building parking garages. And so that's kind of where my main focus is at, is trying to figure out how we can build these things the best we can. So with that, I'll kick it back over to Nate for a little update on who we are here at McCarthy.
All right, so with those unfamiliar to us as a company, we're an employee-owned general contractor with 16 offices across the country. We've always been actively engaged in SWAPTA because parking and transportation are two core competencies of our company. It's really the progressive collaborative delivery environment and design build that attracts us. So with that, John's going to expand a little bit on those capabilities, and then we're going to play a video.
So McCarthy has helped design and build over 300,000 worth of parking stalls, totaling more than $2 billion in revenue. And two of our most recent projects that we would like to highlight in this video are the Garage Mahal, which Nate kind of mentioned, that was built in conjunction with the brand new Circa Resort and Casino that's located on Fremont Street in Las Vegas. That McCarthy also managed the construction of that building. And the other parking garage is in the central of downtown Chandler in Arizona, which was built to support a new development called New Square, which is going to be a central focal point for downtown Chandler for events and entertainment as soon as we get through COVID, obviously.
We are McCarthy Building Company. Welcome, SWPTA 2020. This is our level 1 lobby. Beautiful chandelier. It says time of your life, which is what Circa's slogan is. So you come to the Garage Mahal and then end up at Circa having the time of your life. This is where you'll either come up to go to Circa through the pedestrian bridge in level 2, or you can head back down to catch a ride share, your valet. We also have limo staging down here as well. Inside here, we did have like a drywall build out combined with just the regular parking space. So you still feel like you're in a parking garage, but you have some really high-end finishes as well. This is going to be a typical patron parking level. Each level is actually themed. It has a color and it also has a symbol.
We take a look over here, you can see the wall that we'll take down eventually and build out to have a bridge that runs across the train tracks and over to the new casino hotel.
Us from McCarthy, we want to thank all the partners involved, starting with Derek Stevens, who had the vision for this incredible place, along with Steelman Partners, Carpenter Sellers, Delgado Architects, Choke Parking Consultants, Vicadini, Wagner, and Castle. Structural engineers, thank you.
The lower level of this garage has a higher ceiling to it than a typical garage, and a flatter floor, which gives it the ability to put in retail shops and even potentially a restaurant on the first floor.
And this is pretty rare for most parking garages. Not a lot of them think that far into the future with the possibility of where cars currently park one day could be a store.
And that's all pre-designed into the garage. There was a layout done so that the city could see that it works. The electrical infrastructure is in place.
So in this electrical room, there's actually conduits set up that have fiber and network cables. This is huge because in the future, when they do go to expand, they're going to need network and internet in the building. And so what that does is it eliminates the need to rip up the street or cause any more demolition that could affect traffic and people coming in and out to New Square and Chandler. This is actually where people will walk by and be able to see what's inside these stores. It'll be a display case for all that are here.
They allowed us to come back to them with creative ideas and to work with them to select the best ideas for this project. And I think that shows in the end result when you look at the garage.
So that was a big effort that needed a lot of work to make sure that this was built just the way they wanted it, and for now as well as in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving us the time to actually showcase 2 amazing projects. We hope that video conveys both what our relationships look like and really how much fun it can be at work when everybody's driving towards a collaborative goal. So again, thank you to everybody that made those possible, all the partners, designers, cities, municipalities, and all of you guys for tuning in. So much appreciated.
That was fantastic. Can't wait to see this garage.
Really
Me
excited
neither.
to show everybody the garage in person on another live site tour, but there's always next year.
We'll sign up for tours with Nate.
All righty, thank you guys. And last but not least, we've got Andy with Laz.
All right. Well, thank you. My name is Andy Cushman with Laz Parking, also a member of the Swapped Up board. Let me go ahead and get the video queued up here. So during this, work from home time, obviously there's been a lot of interruptions from our kids out there. So we decided to make a fun little video with our Laz Littles and give them an opportunity to ask some questions and find out, what their parents are really up to. So here we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be interviewed by the Laz Littles. It's the highlight of my entire summer. So thank you, Laz Littles.
Hello, Mr. Laz. What are you passionate about? I would love to know.
I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I'm most passionate about people. Meeting people, talking to people, helping people, creating opportunities to people. That's why we call Laz People. That's why we have people in culture. That's why we love to hug people and help people.
Good morning, Mr. Laz. What is your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is absolutely helping people, taking care of people, creating opportunities to grow Laz, set the vision and the tone of how Laz can expand and how we can grow into different regions and markets and silos and help create opportunities for employees to grow.
So, I have a few questions for you. My first question is that what animal would you be if you could be any animal, and why?
Wow. I love animals. I don't really know what animal I would be. Can I think on that and get back to you?
Hello, Mr. Laz. I would just like to know, have you ever made a TikTok video?
I don't think I've ever done a TikTok video. I would love to do a TikTok video. Can someone teach me how?
Are you the one who parks cars? Or do you have people who do that for you?
That's a great question. Did I park the cars? Yes, I parked the cars for the first 3 years. I was on the street parking cars as a valet parker. I became an official parking attendant, parking manager, parking supervisor, bookkeeper, and salesperson, and did every part of the Laz job along the way.
Why did you choose to go in parking?
I chose to go into parking. It was just a summer job while I was in college and an opportunity to do something fun with my 2 best friends, Michael Harth and Jeff Carr. I have some great questions for the Laz Littles. What do you think Laz Parking means?
Parking at places.
How many states do you think Laz is in?
This one.
Maybe 50?
How many cars do you think Laz parks each and every day?
I would say at the minimum 200. At the maximum, probably 2,000.
If you were a car, what kind of car would you be and why?
I would be a Ram because Rams are cool. And my dad has one.
Thank you for being a Laz Little. Please let me know when you're ready to join the Laz family and get a job with Laz.
All right, so there's a little bit of insight into Laz parking. As I said, we started back in 1981 with one valet zone, and now we're one of the largest parking companies in the country. During these COVID times, we've definitely expanded services and gotten creative to keep our employees working, and taken on new services within the healthcare silo, helping with driving events, using our parking lots creatively to help both our our clients and our employees through this time. And then if there's any other questions regarding Laz or what we can do to help, please let me know. And then wanted to end with just some information, as you can see on my screen behind me, the Gingerbread Garage Contest. So that is going to be on December 16th at 4 p.m. You can register on the SWAPTA website. The swag boxes that should be arriving here soon will have some more information about the contest and some supplies. You can still participate if you don't get a swag box. Just go to the website and make sure you register for it and get the information on how to participate. We will have some prizes to award for the best parking garages. And then also we're going to have Watchery Design help judge the contest. Some of the picture that you'll see in the box and on the website was actually a parking garage, a gingerbread parking garage that was designed and built by Watchery Design. So they're going to help us judge the competition. And I look forward to seeing some very creative and fun gingerbread parking garages. So hopefully everyone jumps on and see you then.
Andy, I love your littles. I love the fact that you're getting them in there young. Start those parking guys young.
Yep.
I think a million, the 1 million number would have blown that kid's mind, because 2,000 and a million are like, whoa, when you're little.
Yep.
It's true. It's true. Darby, that's it.
Thank you to our City of Spokane group. It was great information. Thank you to all of our sponsors for power pitches. Join us for a gingerbread contest. The social events they're fun. They've been a whole lot of fun. All of them. We've had costume contests. We had a cooking show. They're just fun. It's a good way to get involved and do what we can do to be together during this time. So I encourage everybody to build a garage, even if it falls down. It's a fun thing to do.
There you go.
The mask contest, we had that. They're a good time. So we look forward to seeing everybody on the 16th. And then just for information for next month's webinar, we've got some sort of security issues and best practices by Steve Burrell. He's done another one. He's with our IT department here at NAU, and he's done one previously, I believe in the spring. Fantastic speaker. He's got great information. So join us in January as well. And then, yeah, see everybody on the 16th. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.